after having had hundreds of conversations with people about awakening and about psychology, I've very often noticed that people are very rarely lacking in intellectual understanding. I mean, sometimes it's helpful to have something conceptual pointed out and clarified, but very, very often it's just the case that people already have all the intellectual understanding they need, but strangely, they still feel themselves to be very confused. So how can we make sense of that seeming paradox? Well, the pointer here is very simple. If after months or even years of inquiry and reading and understanding, there still is a great deal of confusion, that most likely points to the fact that the answers you're looking for just aren't conceptual. There is not some kind of specific thought-based solution at which you haven't arrived. So by continuing to hammer away at a conceptual level only, you will probably still feel confused. And having understood this, it also becomes quite clear that the answer we are looking for truly does not reside in the purely conceptual realm. That is not to say that conceptual understanding is never useful. It very often can be very useful, but it can only take us so far. It's a useful scaffolding, but to truly resolve confusion, what is needed is direct presence, direct experience, we could say. And to have this direct experience, we don't actually need to get rid of the mind which is trying to understand. As a matter of fact, we can use the mind to reveal the direct experience of being where all the answers are given. So what we tend to do when we are confused is that we are engaged in conceptual thought and we're trying to present another conceptual thought as a solution. Now, in many activities in life that can be useful, but when it comes to awakening, we just find that we are trapped purely in this realm, pulled back and forth, trying to find a resolution, but somehow never really being satisfied. So what we are doing, instead of engaging with thought only with other thought, is to allow these confused thoughts to drop back into their source, into this which is already here, this out of which the confusing thoughts are arising. So just identify what that confusing thought is, first of all. The confusing thought could, for example, say, I'm awareness that is infinite, but then why do I perceive myself to be this limited, localized body-mind? Now, there is maybe a good conceptual answer to this, but again, only trying to solve this riddle intellectually won't get to the heart of the confusion. So there we have this thought, this paradox of non-duality. And now, instead of trying to resolve it, just feel this construction dropping back into the one who is seemingly confused. Allow this thought to point you back to this basic being. How can awareness, which is infinite, appear to be localized? Well, ask this awareness. What does it say? The question can now become a statement. Awareness is infinite and localized. To the mind, that's terribly confusing. But what if we write this confusion into the space of not knowing? Simply this: being. What is this being that is indefinable and infinite? Can we find it? Localize it? Pin it down? We can't. It's utterly impossible. And yet clearly we are also embodied as a human being. Infinite and embodied. But why? But how? How can it be? Drop this question into this openness, this space of not knowing. Being is here. Embodiment is here. Is this a paradox for being itself? No. It just is. In the immediacy of this simple presence, this paradox is resolved. It's not like we're getting an answer here, but it turns out that not getting an answer is exactly the answer we were looking for. It turns out that not knowing is the true knowing. We're not lacking anything here. There's no understanding that's missing right now. It's all just plainly given. And the simplicity of this. We could have spent so much time trying to resolve this intellectually, but as soon as we drop that confusion into this openness, riding the waves of that paradox into this presence, it becomes very, very simple. It is very simple. What seemed to be that torturous paradox is now just the simplicity of this. So being is perfectly okay with a paradox on the mind level. As a matter of fact, when we can speak comfortably in this sort of paradox, infinite and yet embodied and grounded, that is a good sign that we are tasting the freedom of this presence. Because this presence doesn't function in the dualistic, thought-oriented way. It is so much more direct and simple than that. And as soon as we are here in this place we never left, and there's nothing that needs to be figured out. So just go on and enjoy this, live from this.